Hello YouTube, Robert Alvarez, the Psychic Witch, also known as Mr. Lighting and a Fan. The time is approximately 9:40 p.m., which numerologically reduces to 13, so blessed be the power of the witch. And the date is Wednesday, December 5th, 2018. I would like to begin by acknowledging my newest YouTube channel subscribers. They are Dory Moody, Escape from the Eight of Swords. I love that. I love that. Escape from the Eight of Swords. I'm digging that. And Christy Moore. Christy Moore is a brand spanking new subscriber. I have been chatting with her intermittently on the live chat videos from both Conjurer's Table and Wizard's Tower. And I wanted to say a little bit about that because, you know, I don't always have the opportunity to join in on somebody's live chat videos, but when it works with my schedule, it's a joy. And I'm really happy that I think this is the case with Matt from Conjurer's Table, and that is that his professional schedule is non-traditional. So, and since mine has been non-traditional since June 2001, you know, when I can like tune into somebody's live chat videos, like let's say during a weekday morning, it's like, oh, this is so great, especially if I'm awake for it. I've really been enjoying both of their videos and their live chat videos as well. I don't get a chance to watch all of their videos, and as most of you know, especially with regards to my professional psychic practice, September through December remains the busiest time of the year for me. So any opportunities I have to relax, to sleep, to read some cozy mysteries at home, to catch up on my shows, I live for it. Anyway, so I've really been digging that. And the one thing I wanted to say, you know, because I remember that Matt from Conjurer's Table had mentioned this in one of his live videos yesterday. You know, I know that I'm behind on deck review videos, and there is a phenomenal idea that my awesome audiovisual person for my YouTube videos gave me that I am looking forward to implementing. It's a bit work intensive, but it's a really, really great idea, and it's going to make my deck review videos really pop. So I'm excited about it, and I'm really looking forward to really doing a great deal of catching up with my deck review videos. I mean, I'm really excited about that. I have a feeling that at the very least, and I could be wrong about this, but I have a feeling that at the very least, in 2019, the year of enough is enough, I am going to average 1, maybe 2 deck review videos a month, at the very least. Ideally, I would love to do 1 a week, but with my schedule, I don't see that happening. And again, you know, so many amazing new doors opened up for me after leading my very first Divine Prosperity simulcast event this past May. So I can only begin to imagine how many more new doors are going to open up for me next year. But now, the main part of this video, which I have been very excited about, is this video is an official video reply, or VR for short, to hashtag 20 tarot questions from, and I love her username, Geek Girl Does Tarot. I have been wanting to do this VR for weeks, and I remember telling her that I was going to do this, and most of you, some of you know this, I think most of you know this, I'm really, really big on people keeping their promises to me and doing what I say I'm going to do. I have literally removed people from my life for not doing that. And one of my dearest friends, one of my closest friends for years and years, she kept breaking her promises to me, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. And it was so funny because I actually had an incident a few months ago where there was somebody who, for decades actually, she was constantly breaking her promises to me, and I kept letting her slide. And it was the craziest thing because, you know, anybody else I would have been like, oh no bitch, you got to go. But with her, I kept letting her slide and slide and slide. I'm like, why am I doing this? And I didn't realize, and it was a level of resentment that was really pervasive. And I was even amazed at how pervasive it was. And then I finally realized why it was so intense. It was because I was letting her slide the way I let nobody else slide. And yes, I did rectify that, and I feel so much better. But in the meantime, so anyway, getting back to hashtag 20 tarot questions from Geek Girl Does Tarot. So I'm going to be like looking back and forth, just so you know. So, question number 1, what was your first tarot deck? Well, it was the Rider-Waite Tarot deck, which a lot of us call the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot. And I remember it was funny because I was 8.5 at the time, 8.5 years of age, and I lived not too far from where I live now, and they had just opened up a bookstore in my area, and it was a bookstore, and something a little bit about my area. My area has a large Latin American population. There are a lot more people here that speak Spanish than English. So the thing of it is that there aren't a lot of businesses in my area where people only speak English. There are some, but they're very few and far between. And I remember my downstairs neighbor had a daughter named Vicky, who I think was 16 or 15 and a half, or 16 at the time. So she had to accompany me because my mother didn't want me going by myself. So fine. So I went, and I remember I was talking to one of the owners. Her name was Dorothy. I forgot her husband's name, but Dorothy I remembered, and she was such a lovely lady. Oh, I loved her energy. She was so beautiful. And I remember I asked her what this was, and she said, it's tarot cards. And I said, really? What's that? And I just, you know, so I had enough money. It was, believe it or not, it was $8 at the time. These days, you cannot find the tarot deck for less than 14. And that's just the deck, never mind if it comes in a kit. So yeah, it was the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot deck. And anyway, so question number 2, what made you stick with it? Well, the irony is I didn't. I bought the deck, and basically I put it on a shelf on my bookcase, and I collected dust for 8.5 years, or for 8 years. Then when I was 16 and a half, my brother was dating this girl, and she was like, ooh, tarot cards, can I use them? I said, sure. I didn't think anything of it. But then I had the colossal gall to get jealous. I'm like, wait a minute. This has been collecting dust for 8 years, and I have the nerve to get jealous? So I thought to myself, you know what? Let me find out why I'm getting jealous. So I spent time with the cards. I began looking through them. I began reading the little white booklet. And I'm like, okay. And I started connecting with them. Well, I really didn't start connecting with them until one time I was invited to a birthday party. And I remember I was joking with the guy whose birthday it was, and I said to him, you know what, I'll give you a free reading for your birthday. And that was a joke at the time, because the thought of charging a fee in exchange for readings was the furthest thing from my mind at that point. It didn't even occur to me until, let's see, I was around 19 or 20 at that time. And I didn't begin charging a fee or giving readings professionally until I was around 25. So the thought of giving readings professionally was the furthest thing from my mind at that point. Okay, that was question number 2, what made you stick with it. Question number 3, how often do you read? Well, it depends, because I do give readings professionally. So I give readings whenever I have appointments. Some days, some weeks, some months I give more, and some days, some weeks, some months I give less. And I don't just give readings in one physical location. As I've mentioned previously, I am one of the in-store readers at Catland, which is in the Bushwick district of Brooklyn in New York City. But I'm also the only in-store reader that also offers readings by phone and by Skype. So that's one thing. And then, of course, I'm a guest reader at Notions and Potions, which is on Main Street in Beacon, New York, where I will be returning this coming weekend to give readings in the store both on Saturday, December 8th and Sunday, December 9th, 2018. And then, of course, I have clients that live in the New York City area, and it's neither convenient for them to either come to my home or have me go to their home, so I use Ripley Greer Studios in the Midtown Manhattan, in the Midtown section of Manhattan, also in New York City. And very infrequently, I will give readings via email. These days, my email readings are virtually non-existent, but there are a few of them from time to time. Primarily people that are traveling, and an email reading just works for their schedule. So it depends. And once in a while, I'll give myself a reading. It really depends, because I have a very specific procedure that I use when I give myself a reading, and usually I'll do it during the waning moon. I haven't had the chance to do that because I've just been really busy these last few months. Anyway, so and that leads to the next question, which is question number 4. Do you read for yourself? Yes, I do. I have been doing LIsa Frideborg Eddy's #2018 tarot review on my Instagram page, so I will work it every day. So I'll read what the challenge is, and then I'll pull cards. The other thing is, when I do daily draws, and I haven't done a daily draw for myself aside from this tarot challenge in a while, I will ground and center myself, and then usually I'll ask, what do I need to know right now? Or sometimes I'll ask, what do I need to focus on today? Or what is the focus of this day? Okay, question number 5, do you read reversals? For myself, no. For a paying client, it depends. I know that I know that Mary Kay Greer, who truly is one of the A-list of the tarot world, she wrote a book on tarot reversals, but she had also written an article about reading tarot reversals, which was in one of Llewellyn's annual tarot readers, which was their previous tarot annual from more than 10 years ago. And I distinctly remember that one of the ways that she recommended reading reversals was to read it from the perspective of blocked energy. Now, that works for my clients and that works for me. So usually the few times that I will not turn a reverse card upright, I'm reading it, or rather interpreting it, solely from the perspective of blocked energy. So let's say, for example, just as a random example, let's say that I was giving a client a reading and the Queen of Cups came out reversed. The Queen of Cups is one of the 4 counselor cards of the Sacred Tarot. The High Priestess, the Queen of Cups, the King of Cups, which is the male counterpart to the High Priestess, and the Queen of Swords, which is the only one of those 4 counselor cards that has no direct connection to the element of water. So let's say the Queen of Cups came out reversed. I would probably interpret that as the client is not allowing themselves to receive heartfelt, compassionate advice from somebody who has their best interests at heart. That's just one possible interpretation, but it's the one that came off the top of my head. I'm going to have a sip of my beverage. This is a bit of a concoction. It's a combination of Canada Dry lemon lime ginger ale, lemon lime seltzer, with a little bit of Canada Dry pomegranate cherry seltzer, and a little bit of Sprite. It's really good. And it's not as sugary as if it was just Sprite by itself. Okay. Question number 6, what is your favorite card and what is your least favorite card? Well, my favorite card is definitely the High Priestess. I often look at the High Priestess as a reflection of my soul. And the High Priestess card is a visual representation of my personal goddess, the goddess Osset, who is more commonly known as Isis. I have often said that a High Priestess card must meet my standards of Osseticity, as opposed to authenticity, but Osseticity, capital A-U-S-E-T, for me to be able to use it. There was a tarot deck, I think it was published by US Game Systems called, which is the current publisher of the Rider-Waite-Smith. I think it's called the Vampire Tarot. I remember looking at the High Priestess card, I wanted to throw up. The standards of Osseticity in that High Priestess card were completely absent. Now, I have had vampiric themed decks. Sometimes they resonate with me, sometimes they don't. It's a thing with me, you know. I don't usually read anything vampiric in paranormals unless there's a witch involved, so, or a werewolf, or both. I do find that some High Priestess cards do not resonate with me, and I cannot read that deck. It's not going to connect with me, and I'm not going to connect with it. As for my least favorite card, you know, I've never really thought about that. I think my least favorite card, if I had to choose one, I think my least favorite card, and I'm mentally going through this particular number in the Minor Arcana. I'm going to say 8 of Cups. And I'll say that because of all of the tarot cards, the one that's like, no, I take that back, because now I'm getting interpretations for the 8 of Cups. You know, I would say, generally speaking, my least favorite tarot card is the one that I can't interpret. That's my least favorite tarot card. If I can't interpret it right off the bat, and if I always have difficulty interpreting it, yeah, it's my least favorite card. Okay. Let's see. Question number 7. What is your favorite spread? Well, with clients' readings, I don't use traditional spreads. I simply lay out the cards as I'm divinely guided to lay them out. So I don't use traditional spreads. When I use, when I consult the tarot for myself, I will go through a book of spreads, or if I'm using a tarot deck that has a companion book, then I'll go through the spreads in that book and see which one resonates with me at that time. I will say, generally speaking, I am more drawn to comprehensive spreads, because I very rarely ask about one topic. I usually ask about several different topics when I'm consulting the tarot for myself. A focused spread focuses only one area of one life. For example, the ex-lover spread. That's a focused spread. The very well-known Celtic cross spread, that's a comprehensive spread because it examines different areas of one's life. I would say, now here's the thing. LIsa Frideborg Eddy recently published on her Angelorum Tarot and Healing website a daily choices spread, which I resonated with so strongly. I was like, ooh, this is good. It only includes 5 cards. And I really wanted to use a daily spread, like an easy to use, easy to understand, very simple, not complex daily spread. Like if I ever wanted to consult the Sacred Tarot for myself every single day, other than daily draws, this is the spread I would use. And I was blown away by its simplicity and its elegance. I was like, this is perfect. This is so perfect. Like that's what I kept thinking. This is perfect. This is so perfect. Every time, and I will include a link in the description box because I just loved her daily choices spread. I was just like, this is so perfect. I kept thinking that every time I looked at the image in the blog post, every time I read the name of it, I'm like, this is so perfect. This is so perfect. So I would say that's probably right now my closest to having a favorite spread. Okay. Question number 8, how do you care for your decks? Well, I definitely keep them out of direct sunlight. I keep them in their boxes or their tarot bags when I'm not using them. I definitely have a ritual, and I've actually done this video. I did this video, I think it was last year. I think I did a video where I went through the ritual that I use to cleanse and consecrate the decks that I'm going to use. I usually go through, what I do is every new moon, I will tune in with my psychic guides, and I'll ask them which are the decks that I'm going to use for readings. And usually it's a combination of tarot decks and oracle card decks. Pardon me. I have some clients that have no issue with tarot, and I have some clients that do not resonate with the tarot. So I use both. So it just depends on what I'm using. And usually I like to have a variety. So these days, on average, I will have between 4 to 8 tarot decks and between 4 to 8 oracle card decks that I will use at any given time from one new moon to the following dark moon. And those are the ones that I use for myself. Those are the ones that I use for readings. I know that for LIsa Frideborg Eddy's hashtag 2018 Tarot Review, I've been using the Everyday Witch Tarot. Let's see. And then, of course, when I'm giving readings at a public venue, like let's say Notions and Potions, the decks that have already been used, I'll place a crystal on top of them. And then sometimes, depending upon the day, I'll use that deck more than once, or sometimes by the end of the day I've only used it once, so I'll start putting it away, especially if the store's going to be closing soon. Okay. Question number 9, what do you get asked the most? It depends on the client, and it depends on the location. When I first began giving readings professionally in New York City, I found that I would say roughly 75% of my heterosexual female clients asked about work and career first and foremost. Most of the time, they only asked about work and career, regardless of their chronological age. They could have been in their 20s to their 40s. And almost always, that was the first question. What about my work life? What about my career? What about professional opportunities? I found the last few years, wherever I give readings, whether it's in New York City or online or via Skype or at any other public venue like a psychic fair, I have clients that will ask about potential romantic interests, potential romantic opportunities. They'll ask about they'll ask for messages from deceased loved ones. I have one client in particular, every time she has a reading with me, she always asks for a message from her maternal grandmother and then her she'll ask for messages from her maternal grandparents and her paternal grandparents. But offhand, I don't remember if she asks for messages from the maternal grandparents first or the paternal. I think it's the maternal. And she asks about them individually, like from this grandparent to that grandparent. So messages from deceased loved ones has become a more common and popular question these last, let's say, 2 to 3 years or so. Let's see. Question number 10. What would a deck made by you look like? Well, given my love affair with anything ancient Egyptian, and given my love for various cultures, international cultures, and indigenous peoples, I would say that any tarot deck created by me would probably have either an ancient Egyptian focus or a multicultural indigenous people focus, meaning the imagery would be primarily either ancient Egyptian or multicultural or indigenous or a combination of the three. It would definitely have dark, rich jewel tones, because I definitely love tarot decks that have those qualities. I love tarot decks that are ancient Egyptian in design and are multicultural and feature indigenous peoples and have dark, rich jewel tones. Okay. Question number 11. What is the weirdest thing that you have ever been asked? I am a psychic and a witch. Anything that I call weird really has to be out there. Like really, really, really has to be out there. So I don't think anybody's ever asked me a question that I thought was like really weird or really bizarre. And I thought about this, you know, because I remember when Simon at the Hermit's Cave was doing this VR, I was thinking about his responses to, I was thinking about my responses to these same questions. But even back then, I remember thinking, I don't think anybody's ever asked me a super bizarre question. And just off the top of my head, there's nothing that springs to mind. Granted, even though I do a lot more channeling in my readings, I definitely, I think I would remember something like that. Okay. Question number 12. What is your biggest pet peeve in tarot? You know, I'm going to say this. I think one of my biggest pet peeves in general is, and this applies to little white booklets, and this applies to accompanying books with a deck, are grammatical and syntactical errors and lapses in proofreading. That's really one of my biggest pet peeves. I don't know if I have a big pet peeve with tarot decks in general. I think, if anything, one of my biggest pet peeves, and this is more myself, is when I think I'm going to resonate with a deck and then I don't. I think that's one of my biggest pet peeves. And I don't know why that is, because I trust my intuition very much. And I feel that if my intuition is telling me to buy a deck and guiding me to buy a deck, then I'm going to follow that divine guidance. And this year, I've been divinely guided to buy a lot of decks. So that's one of the reasons why, you know, right now, I don't need the people who usually give me holiday and birthday gifts to give me a deck. A tarot bag is another story, however. But I definitely find, so I think that's, if anything, my biggest pet peeve, is when I thought I was going to resonate with a deck and I don't. Because then I think, well, what happened? And sometimes it's just a matter of, well, how many decks can I use in a day, in a week, in a month? So I might need to give that question a little bit more thought. But off the top of my head, I don't think I have any big pet peeve with tarot decks in general. And if I do, it's so minute it's not even coming up. But I would definitely say one of my biggest pet peeves with regards to little white booklets for tarot decks and accompanying guidebooks for tarot decks is when they don't do the proofreading correctly. Meaning, when I find grammatical and syntactical errors and misspelled words, that's a huge pet peeve for me. Okay. Have another sip of my concoction. I can just see Conjurer's Table smirking when I said concoction. Let's see. Question number 13. Do you have any bad tarot habits? No. I don't think I do. I was thinking about that, and I'm like, wait a minute. No, I don't think I do. I think that if anything, sometimes rather than jumping into a reading, I need to like sit down. You know what? I'm going to say this. So I think, if anything, one of my bad habits in tarot is especially when I'm conducting a client's reading, it's natural for me to jump right in and start reading the cards. And maybe instead of doing that, I need to take a breath, close my eyes, and tune in first. I think that, if anything, is one of my worst tarot habits. Like, rather than just jump into the reading, it's like, just close your eyes, Robert, take a breath, tune into the energy, and then open your eyes and read. And I've actually been taught this by, among other people, Raven Grimassi, when he and his wife Stephanie Taylor had led a workshop on their first divination deck together, which is called the Well-Worn Path, illustrated by the Mickey Muller. I remember that was one of the first things that he said when he gives readings. It's like, I close my eyes, I take a breath, I tune in, then I open my eyes, and then I read. It's really good advice. Let's see, question number 14. Do you get hate from skeptics or religious folk? Not anymore. Not anymore. In fact, I remember this was going back more than 10 years. Actually, I think it was maybe 15 years ago. I had gone to a party. There was a teenage girl who wanted to be baptized, and I was having a conversation with the pastor, who was a Lutheran minister. And I remember he was telling me about somebody in his church who uses the tarot. And at one point, the pastor said to me, I know you're going to try to convince me that this is... I said, no, I'm not. Stopped him right in his tracks. He was like, he was expecting me to argue with him about the validity of the tarot. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. You have your thoughts, I have my thoughts. You know what works for you, I know what works for me. We're choosing to disagree, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what works best for you, I know what works best for me. You know your path to God, I know my path to Goddess. Period. He really thought I was going to argue with him. No. One of the things that I have learned earlier in my life is to pick and choose my battles. Yes, there are some times I'm going to be a hardcore bitch and I'm going to open my mouth and say, you know what? This is what you need to know about this. And there are some times that I'm going to be like, okay, bye. Because, honey, sometimes it's all about saying bye. But no, I don't remember the last time somebody gave me flack, somebody who's skeptical or for lack of a better term or phrase, super religious, gave me flack about reading the tarot. I really don't remember the last time. Okay, now, question number 15. Do you have any readings you're proud of? You know, I have a warped sense of humor. And for the longest time, anytime somebody would say, oh my God, you're scary, I would take that as a huge compliment. And I still do. I really still do. But, you know, I think, honestly, the readings that inspire the most good feelings in me are the ones that really make a difference in a person's life and help them and heal them. You know, I've often said that if I were to die tonight, and I died with a clear mind and a pure heart, and I died feeling like complete and lacking nothing, then I know that I made a difference in people's lives and I could die peacefully. Now, I plan on living well past 100 years of age, ladies and gentlemen. So let me just say that, number one. But number two, I really do look at it that way. Like, you know what? If I can make a difference in somebody's life, and if this client has a reading with me and it helps them and gives them all the clarity, all the illumination, all the peace and all the healing they need to move forward, then I think, I'm going to say it like this, I think I have the right to feel good about that. I'm going to say it like that. Okay. Question number 16. Has reading changed your perspective? I think for me, the question needs to be rephrased. Has given readings changed my perspectives? So I'm going to reword that slightly, and I'm going to say yes. It certainly opened my mind a lot. I've been saying for years, anybody who studies the sacred tarot becomes adept at spotting patterns. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that anybody who learns the tarot, they become very good at spotting patterns. So I've come to see the patterns in my life and the patterns in other people's lives. And sometimes those patterns are very easy to see, and sometimes not so much. It depends on the situation, it depends on the emotional attachment factor, it depends on a lot of things. But it certainly has broadened my mind, opened my mind. Giving readings professionally has certainly given me the opportunity to meet people that I probably would have never met, and have experiences that I probably would have never had. Sorry, my awesome audiovisual person did something that he did not mean to do. Isn't that right? And he's nodding his head. And he's not going to do it again, right? And he's also nodding his head. Because it would be very embarrassing if I threw something at his head, especially while I'm doing this video. Right? Right. And I said right before he started nodding his head, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, let's go back to where I was. Okay, so it has changed my perspectives in a lot of ways. Question number 17. Do you prepare a space or ritual before a reading? Absolutely. It depends on where I am. When I'm giving readings at a public venue, it depends on what I can do. I remember I briefly gave readings in this gay bar in Manhattan, and one of the bartenders was allergic to incense, so I couldn't burn incense there. These days, I almost never burn incense because, in spite of the fact that I now love burning incense, some people are allergic to it, some people don't like it, so it also depends on where I am, because some places serve food, so it could be a problem. But it really depends. I do feel most comfortable lighting a candle when I can. That's very important to me. Lighting a candle is really important. When I give readings in my home or in somebody else's home, I always like to light a candle and have a glass of water, usually in a goblet, for the spirits. That makes me feel very comfortable. That makes me feel very happy and gives me extra peace. But there is a specific... And for me, it is a ritual that I do when I give readings at a public venue. Just to give you a brief example, like when I give readings at Notions and Potions, I'm sorry, you moved the stand, so can you just check to make sure everything's okay? Okay, you're not going to move the stand anymore, right? Okay, thank you. Are you sure maybe you want to do that later, or do you need to do that now? Are you sure? Okay. I'm just checking because I'd like this video to be a little bit shorter than long. Sorry, YouTube. Okay, let's get to... So let me give you a brief example. So when I give readings at Notions and Potions, I will come in, I'll say hello to the staff, I will you put my bags in the psychic corner, no, in the reading space, and then I'll hang up my coat or my jacket, these days, in the back, use the bathroom, freshen up. Then I'll go to the reading space and I will start setting it up. I'll plug in my cell phone, make sure, because sometimes I need to charge it for the battery, and make sure that it's fully charged for the reading so I can time them. Then I'll look at my space, take out the layout cloth, take out the decks that I'm going to use, take out the crystals I'm going to put on the layout cloth, and then once everything is set up, I will engage in meditation and prayer. So it depends on where I am, because again, there are certain places I can do certain things, like when I give readings in person at Catland, I can burn a smudge stick, I can burn a stick of Palo Santo. So again, it depends on where I am. And then of course at Notions and Potions, I can light the candles that are in the reading space. So depending upon where I am, there are certain things that I can do. There are certain things that I'm encouraged to do. There are certain things I need to do differently. Question number 18. How do you feel about the tarot community? Honestly, I think the tarot community is awesome. Like capital A, capital W, capital E, capital S, capital O, capital W, capital E, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Especially the tarot community on YouTube. Now, I will say that there are people, and this could be, let's say, on YouTube, this could be on Facebook, this could be Yahoo groups, this could be in person. There are some groups that are not that nice. I don't encounter them anymore. And I remember there was a Yahoo group and a Facebook group that was part of a New Jersey based witches group. And I found it unsettling and disturbing how many people in this group were just very unkind and very cruel and very mean. And the moderator of this, or rather the founder of these two groups, really showed her true colors 2 years ago towards someone who is terminally ill. And I'm just looking at her like, you are just this vile, nasty piece of hate. So I immediately, and that was one of the deciding factors in me deactivating my Facebook page for the second and last time. And as I have stated before, and as I will happily state again, I have no issue with anyone who uses a social media platform I do not use. You use Facebook, good for you. You use Snapchat, good for you. Whatever the reasons are, if they work for you, that's the most important thing. Facebook stopped working for me. Snapchat stopped working for me. I no longer use them, and I have no regrets. So, and I really feel that I need to periodically say that, because I certainly have, first of all, I go well out of my way to avoid being judgmental. You want to use that thing? Go right ahead, use that thing. You want to use that thing? Go ahead, use that thing. But if that thing that you use works for you, that is the most important thing. That really is the most important thing. One of my favorite quotes from Louise L. Hay during her Receiving Prosperity audio was, "You do not need my approval to live well." And you know what? She was absolutely right. None of you need my approval to live well. If you are living well using Facebook, then you keep living well using Facebook. Living well with Facebook did not work for me because I wasn't living well. So that's why I deactivated it for the second and last time, Monday, November 21st, 2016. I don't remember the time or the hour or the second, but I remember the date. Anyway, but that's another topic. So I really enjoy the tarot community on YouTube, and honestly, these days, I'm only encountering the tarot community on YouTube. I don't usually interact with tarot community aside from close friends and clients and fellow professional psychics who live in the New York City area outside of YouTube. Swan of Dreamers is one of my favorite people on the planet. She's availed herself of my psychic services. She's also professional intuitive. So when we have our sacred play dates, we'll talk about the tarot, we'll talk about different tarot decks and oracle card decks, and I'll show her some of the ones that I've purchased. And we really enjoy ourselves. We really have a great time doing that. Because she does have a busy professional intuitive schedule, and because she's also a wife, and she has a husband, and she has a son, we don't get together every day. But the few times that we do get together, it's priceless. So it's really great when we get to do that. Anyway, so that answers that question. Okay, now, question number 19. Hold on. I've been doing a lot of talking. We're in the home stretch, ladies and gentlemen. 2 more questions. Question number 19. Do you have any advice for your younger self? First piece of advice for my younger self: trust your intuition all the time. Trust your intuition more than you think you can. Your intuition is never going to steer you wrong. And the second piece of advice I would give my younger self is, you don't need the booklets. You're never going to need the booklets. You're going to always know everything you need to know from listening to your spirit guides, your guardian angels, your psychic guides, and your ancestors. They're always going to tell you every single thing you need to know. Yeah. Question number 20. Do you have any advice for novices? You know, honestly, I think, well, first of all, one of the things that I love, and I say this respectfully to anyone, regardless of their level of expertise, and I say this to not just people studying the tarot, but anybody who's walking a magical path or who's a magical practitioner. We're always going to learn. We need to always be open to learning, because we're never going to learn. We're never going to know everything in one lifetime. That's number one. So I think one of the best pieces of advice that I could give anybody who's studying the sacred tarot or studying any other divination system or walking a magical path is to always be open to learning. I think that's one of the most important things. And it's so funny because I remember when I was active with a group called the NYC Open Gay Men's Pagan Magic Circle, there was somebody who had walked up to our table and said, "But how can you draw down the moon? You're just gay men." And I looked at him and I said, "Honey, I can draw down the moon like anybody's business." And I can. I am male. I'm male-born male. I'm not woman-born female. But honey, I can draw down the moon like anybody's business. Maybe not like somebody who is woman-born female, maybe not somebody who menstruates, but I can still draw down the moon. And having as my personal goddess a full moon goddess, honey, I know how to draw down the moon. And I have all the requisite male parts, so I can still do it. And I'll leave it at that. But I also feel that one of the easiest and one of the best ways to learn the tarot is to pull a card for the day. Pull a card every day. And don't think, well, what does this mean? Just tune into it. You know, I still remember I used to give reading. Four clients and I had co-created a group called the Tarot Lovers Club. And we used to have a Tarot Lovers Club meeting with an opening tarot card, a topic of discussion, and a closing tarot card. And we used to have a Tarot Lovers party afterwards. And there was somebody who had come for the first time, and she had purchased her very first tarot deck, not even a full 24 hours before. Meaning, like, not even a full 24 hours before this Tarot Lovers Club meeting took place. She purchased her very first tarot deck. And I remember it was the Robin Wood Tarot by Robin Wood, which I happen to own, and it's been one of my personal favorite tarot decks for years. And I remember being phenomenally amazed and awestruck at some of the insights she was receiving from the Empress card. I would expect somebody who had been studying the tarot for a decade plus to get those insights, not somebody who didn't even own their very first tarot deck until not even a full 24 hours prior. And I was so blown away. I was like, "Man, you are good." And she was like, "Really?" I said, "Yes, because those are some things that I would expect all of us to know. I would expect somebody who's had several tarot decks and taken tarot classes for years and years to know. Not somebody who didn't even know how to have a tarot deck for not even a full day ahead of time." Blew my mind. Blew my freaking mind. I was like blown away. And it was about the Empress card. I remember it was the Empress card. But the insights that she was receiving from the Empress card in that deck were so mind-blowing. I mean, even all these years later, I only remember a handful of some of the things she said, but I remember how I felt. Like, damn, girl, you are tuning in. Like, really, she was so connected to this deck. And she was so connected to what she was receiving and what she was hearing and what she was listening. So I don't care if you've been studying the tarot for 2 minutes or 2 decades. If you are always willing to learn, you are always going to learn, and you are always going to receive knowledge and wisdom. Seriously. And there we have hashtag 20 tarot questions. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Geek Girl Does Tarot, for offering this tarot tag. And thank you so much for your patience in helping me get this done. Because I wanted to do this sooner. I knew I wanted to do this sooner. I would have preferred doing it sooner. And it didn't happen until now. And there you have it. So in the meantime, YouTube, as always, thank you so much for honoring who I am and what I do. I want to remind all of you that if you have not already subscribed to the YouTube channel of yours truly, Robert Alvarez, the Psychic Witch, also known as Mr. Lighting and a Fan, please do so. Make sure that you click or tap the bell icon. That way you will receive a notification every single time I upload a video. And I am very close to doing what I say I'm going to do, which I said earlier this month that before the end of the month, I will have uploaded between 15 to 30 videos by, what date is that? By Monday, December 31st, 2018. And I think at this point, I am much closer to the 15 mark than the 30 mark. But the 30 mark is fast approaching. So yes, and do periodically recheck to make sure that your bell icon remains clicked or tapped. Also, given that I've gotten over my stuff about likes, if you would give this video a like, I shall be ever thankful. And if you have not already scheduled your sacred session with yours truly, Robert Alvarez, the Psychic Witch, I recommend you do so sooner than later. I know that I have some availability left for the remainder of December 2018, not by much, but I still have some. And keep in mind that when I return to Notions and Potions this weekend, I will be scheduling my time at the store. I originally said February through April of 2019, but I actually did not realize I would be scheduling February through May of 2019. And given what I already have in the works and tentatively / definitely scheduled with regards to leading simulcast events in 2019, I'm only going to start booking up faster as soon as after this weekend. So I highly recommend scheduling sooner than later. And of course, I cannot over-recommend following your divine guidance. If you know to the marrow of your bones, as I would say, that you could only receive divine blessings from availing yourself of my psychic services, follow that divine guidance and absolutely ask the universe to provide you with everything you need, because the universe will absolutely do that. For now, I wish all of you a good night. I wish all of you a wonderful weekend, and I wish all of you and yours many blessings of love and light, prosperity and peace. And good night.